And the most incompetent. Like, they don't know how the power grid works. They can't fix a car. They don't know anything. They're totally useless. They're parasites. And when given the chance to rule, they wrecked the country because they don't know how to do anything.
Late-night headlines exploded as Tucker Carlson stepped into the firestorm surrounding Meghan's alleged LAX escape. With bank records suddenly surfacing and timelines unraveling, his reaction was swift, cutting, and impossible to ignore. Studio panels went silent as accusations collided with receipts, and a story once whispered now thundered across screens. Was this exposure the final chapter, or the opening of something far bigger? As Carlson breaks it down frame by frame, one question hangs in the air. Has the truth finally caught up with her public image? From LAX spectacle to international scandal, what the world witnessed at LAX, the 7 suitcases stacked high, the sudden diversion of a private jet, the shocking landing on a military base in Sicily, was just the opening act in a story far darker than anyone imagined. On the surface, it was a spectacle. Cameras flashed, headlines screamed, social media exploded with speculation. But all of that, it was merely the curtain rising. The true drama began the moment evidence stepped into the light. Not whispers, not gossip, not hot takes from pundits. Real, verifiable, undeniable proof. And standing at the center of this storm, ready to dissect it for the world, is none other than Tucker Carlson. Known for his incisive, no-nonsense commentary, Carlson doesn't speculate. He doesn't theorize. He shows the facts, and the facts are explosive. At the heart of this revelation is a staggering sum: $12 million in undeclared cash, intercepted far from U.S. soil. This isn't a misunderstanding nor a casual oversight. This is a deliberate, coordinated movement of millions of dollars, and it has been traced, documented, and exposed. Bank records, meticulously detailed wire transfers, and official receipts all point to a single, shocking truth. The Sussex narrative, long defended in headlines and glossy profiles, is now under fire. Carlson lays it out piece by piece, walking viewers through the labyrinth of financial maneuvers, offshore accounts, and shell companies. Every document tells a story. Every transaction is a thread in a tapestry of deception. And together, they form a pattern impossible to ignore. The careful timing of transfers, the movement of funds across borders, the use of intermediaries, all hint at a system designed to conceal, obscure, and manipulate. The implications are staggering. This isn't merely a celebrity scandal. It's a web of financial activity that raises questions about legality, intent, and accountability on a scale that few anticipated. And Carlson doesn't hold back, highlighting how every paper trail, every record, every line in the ledger builds a case that could topple the carefully curated image the world has been shown. Tonight, the focus is sharp, the stakes are high, and the revelations are unforgiving. Tucker Carlson presents not a narrative of rumor or innuendo, but a narrative written in ink, stamped in official records, and traced across international borders. The conclusion is unavoidable. The Sussex story, the fairy tale carefully presented to the public for years, is cracking under the weight of its own evidence. And at the center of it all, one figure looms in the glare of scrutiny: Meghan Markle. Tonight, as Carlson unspools the evidence, the headlines are clear. The documents speak for themselves. The spectacle at LAX was only the beginning. The reality, laid bare in black and white, is far more damning. Meghan Markle? The world is watching, and the verdict seems unmistakable. She is finished. Carlson, known for his fearless and uncompromising commentary, is set to unravel the mystery behind the $12 million allegedly linked to Meghan. But does he have convincing evidence to back these claims? Or is he merely acting on suspicion? Let's find out. The dossier that changes everything. This wasn't another opinion segment. This wasn't spin or speculation designed to get clicks. This was something far more serious and far more damning. Tucker Carlson didn't come on air to opine. He came on air to reveal a dossier, thick, heavily redacted, stamped, and seemingly impossible to ignore. Every page, every line, every highlighted detail pointed to the same alarming conclusion: a sprawling network of offshore entities, wire transfers, and shell companies allegedly connected to Meghan Markle. The documents didn't whisper, they shouted. They traced millions of dollars moving through accounts and jurisdictions in a manner that appeared carefully orchestrated. Dates and figures didn't just float in isolation. They lined up perfectly with the collapse of major income streams. Netflix, Spotify, deals that fell apart. The moment money stopped flowing legally, the papers suggested, it began moving in ways that raised serious questions about legality. And then there was the LAX footage, the 7 suitcases, the diverted private jet, the extraordinary landing at a military base in Sicily. The world had focused on the spectacle, the bizarre theatrics, the celebrity headlines, but Tucker turned that lens to a hidden detail no one else had emphasized. The so-called architect captured in the footage, the person standing beside Meghan as the cash moved, wasn't a manager or a business advisor, as some had assumed. According to the evidence Carlson laid out, she was a cleaner. Her role, allegedly, wasn't to negotiate deals, cultivate media, or manage wealth. Her task was to erase tracks, to obscure the movement of money, and to make a multi-million-dollar operation appear invisible. Carlson didn't just summarize the documents. He guided viewers step by step, showing the flow of funds like a map of a financial heist, offshore accounts linked to shell companies, wire transfers with opaque descriptions, dates that align too precisely with major financial collapses to be a coincidence. Receipts and authorization notes suggest meticulous planning. Every disclosure added layers to a story that went far beyond celebrity gossip. It revealed what could be a vast, deliberate web of financial maneuvering with the Duchess of Sussex at its center. The atmosphere on screen was tense. Carlson's delivery was deliberate, slow, and methodical. He wasn't dramatizing. He wasn't exaggerating. He was presenting a chain of evidence, document by document, line by line, letting the weight of the proof speak for itself. Viewers weren't being asked to guess. They were being shown. And with each revelation, the spectacle of LAX, the viral headlines, and the social media frenzy suddenly became just the tip of a far deeper, far darker story. A story of millions in cash, offshore routes, and the carefully concealed mechanisms of a financial operation that could rewrite the Sussex narrative entirely. Tucker Carlson lays bare a multi-million-dollar financial web with the precision of an investigator, showing that this story is less about speculation and more about evidence and accountability. But how did she manage to achieve all of this without her husband's consent? What techniques did she use to avoid detection? Now let's uncover how Harry's trust was hijacked. The ultimate betrayal. The bombshell dropped like a thunderclap. Tucker Carlson didn't just report. He meticulously laid bare the astonishing details. At the heart of the storm was a staggering $2 million wire transfer labeled the exit fee, moved directly from Prince Harry's personal trust. This wasn't just any money, it was a legacy, a tangible connection to the Queen Mother, Harry's beloved great-grandmother. And where did it go? Into an account controlled solely by Meghan Markle, just days before the dramatic LAX episode that had captivated the world. This wasn't clever business maneuvering. This was theft, calculated, deliberate, and personal. But the financial intrigue didn't stop there. Tucker peeled back layer after layer of what he called the shell game, revealing a labyrinth of offshore transactions. Income from Netflix, Spotify, and even book deals, funds that once flowed into joint accounts, was immediately funneled through a Delaware-based shell company, Project Phoenix LLC. At first glance, everything looked routine: consulting fees, standard transfers. But the devil was in the details. Each transaction bore Harry's digital signature. On paper, he approved it all. In reality, Tucker explained, those signatures were allegedly auto-stamped, used without Harry's explicit consent. Every move, every dollar seemed designed to create the illusion of legitimacy while stripping Harry of control. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Harry, long accused by some of being complicit in Sussex's financial dealings, was no longer the orchestrator. He was the victim of identity misuse, victim of betrayal by someone he trusted implicitly. The trust his grandmother had left him, a financial and symbolic lifeline to his family, had been weaponized, turned into a means for someone else's escape. Every dollar taken wasn't just a financial hit, it was a symbolic strike at the heart of his family legacy. Tucker didn't just outline numbers, he painted a portrait of cold calculation. The transfers weren't chaotic, they were methodical, timing aligned with moments when legal and financial oversight might be weakest, when Netflix or Spotify deals collapsed, or when other income streams slowed. Every move suggested foresight, planning, and a deep understanding of how to operate in the shadows of wealth, fame, and privilege. For viewers, the implications were staggering. The Sussex narrative of victimhood and misfortune crumbled under the weight of these revelations. Harry wasn't the one in control. He was manipulated. The Queen Mother's trust, the very money meant to safeguard his future, had been turned against him. In one devastating sequence, Tucker Carlson transformed what seemed like celebrity drama into a high-stakes story of betrayal, deception, and financial treachery. This wasn't tabloid fodder. This wasn't gossip. This was a carefully orchestrated betrayal, one that cut deep, reaching far beyond money to touch the very essence of trust, legacy, and family honor. Carlson reveals compelling evidence to support his claim that Meghan's alleged money laundering was calculated and audacious. But will Meghan respond? And if she does, what form will that response take? And can she stop Carlson from exposing more? Now, let's explore the silence and legal threat. The collapse of the fear factor. The reaction, or rather, the lack of it, was immediate and deafening. Across social media, the usual waves of outrage, defense campaigns, and influencer-fueled counterattacks were nowhere to be seen. No coordinated responses from the Sussex Army. No fan accounts spinning the narrative. The reason was simple. This wasn't opinion, speculation, or gossip. This was evidence, tangible and undeniable. Bank statements, wire transfers, and financial records don't lie. They tell the story of money moved, dates matched, and patterns exposed, and in this case, they spoke louder than any publicist ever could. Then, in a moment that could only happen live on air, the drama intensified. Mid-broadcast, an official cease and desist letter from Meghan Markle's lawyers landed on the studio desk. The letter, typed on formal Los Angeles law firm letterhead, demanded that Tucker Carlson halt the discussion, claiming the records were private and any further mention would constitute a legal violation. The atmosphere was electric. Cameras caught every subtle reaction. Without missing a beat, Tucker leaned forward, glanced at the document, allowed a slow, knowing smirk to cross his face, and tore it into pieces. The gesture was simple but symbolic, a loud, unambiguous statement. Privacy claims end when criminal evidence begins. The message reverberated not just in the studio but across the internet, leaving viewers stunned and buzzing. But the show was far from over. Tucker turned his attention to one final, tantalizing piece of evidence that had not yet been disclosed. A single email sent from Meghan's private, secure server carried the subject line. "The package is ready." The timing was chilling, just days before the intercepted flight to Dubai. He did not reveal the full contents, citing legal constraints, but the implication was unmistakable. This was premeditated. This was not the panic of a sudden financial misstep. This was deliberate, planned, and meticulously executed. As viewers processed the shocking revelations, the gravity of the situation hit hard. This wasn't just another royal scandal or celebrity controversy. It had escalated into a full-blown criminal investigation. Offshore accounts, shadowy shell companies, and mysterious wire transfers revealed a financial operation spanning continents. Tucker Carlson's calm but relentless delivery left no room for doubt. Hidden fortunes were now exposed. Audacity collided with accountability, and the delicate world of power, privilege, and secrecy trembled. What once seemed untouchable was suddenly under the unforgiving glare of law and evidence. And the verdict? Unmistakable. After presenting the evidence, walking viewers through the records and highlighting the legal challenge, Tucker concluded with cold, unflinching finality. Meghan Markle is finished. Not just as a figure in the royal family, not just as a celebrity under scrutiny, but as someone whose actions now carry consequences that cannot be spun away. The silence, the legal threat, and the emails all converged into one undeniable reality. This was the endgame, and the world was watching. Carlson continues revealing the evidence despite legal threats, insisting that this goes beyond a royal scandal and may be a criminal case. But is there a law prohibiting money laundering? Could Meghan be held liable for punishment? Now, let's delve into cash smuggling and the law. The memoir that changed everything. Virginia Giuffre had been sharing her story about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the powerful men who she said hurt her for many years. However, it wasn't until her book, Nobody's Girl, was published after her death in October 2025 that her serious claims really shocked the British royal family. She described meeting the prince at Ghislaine Maxwell's London home, where Maxwell had told her that, just like Cinderella, she would meet a handsome prince that night. According to Giuffre's account, Andrew had correctly guessed her age, and then mentioned that his own daughters were only slightly younger, a detail that made the subsequent events all the more disturbing. And hiding behind its well-guarded gates. The timing of the memoir's release couldn't have been worse for the royal family. King Charles was already dealing with his own health challenges following a cancer diagnosis, and the monarchy was working hard to maintain public support during a period of transition. The graphic nature of Giuffre's allegations, combined with the sympathy generated by her tragic death, created a perfect storm of public outrage that would force the king's hand in ways that no one had anticipated. Just weeks earlier, an entitled attitude that she had thought about many times in the years since. The book also included allegations that Andrew's team had tried to hire internet trolls to harass her during their legal battle, and that he had attempted to dig up dirt on her through his security personnel. Most devastatingly, Giuffre wrote about how Andrew had made it difficult for her lawyers to serve him papers by fleeing to Queen Elizabeth's Balmoral Castle in Scotland. What made the memoir particularly damaging was its emotional authenticity and the specific details Giuffre provided about Andrew's behavior and attitudes. She wrote that the prince had seemed to believe that having intimate relations with her was his birthright. Sadly, Giuffre took her own life in April 2025, leaving behind a written account that explained years of mistreatment, with Prince Andrew being a big part of her story. The book became an instant bestseller, leaping to #1 on Amazon even before its official release date. Readers around the world were confronted with Giuffre's detailed accounts of being forced to have intimate relations with Andrew on 3 separate occasions when she was just 17 years old. The shocking precedent and what it means. The choice to take away Andrew's title as a prince shocked many people, not just his family. Experts in law and royal history pointed out that this was the first time since 1936 that a high-ranking British royal had been so openly pushed aside by the current king. By using a special legal document called letters patent, King Charles showed he was ready to use all his power to keep the royal family's good name safe, even if it meant making big, personal sacrifices. People who follow the royal family noticed that Andrew's daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, would still have their titles, even though their dad was in trouble. This choice showed that the king wanted to punish Andrew but didn't want to hurt his daughters. However, some family insiders said that Andrew worked hard to keep his daughters' titles safe. The situation became even more important because of the words in the palace statement. The announcement clearly said that these actions are necessary, even though he still denies the accusations against him. This was important because it showed that the king was taking action not because Andrew admitted to doing anything wrong, but because the accusations and Andrew's connection to Jeffrey Epstein had become so harmful that they could hurt the whole royal family. He even made a secret deal with Charles to make sure Beatrice and Eugenie wouldn't be affected by their father's problems. The fact that such negotiations were necessary highlighted just how completely Andrew's position within the family had collapsed. Basically, the statement recognized that sometimes protecting the monarchy meant making tough choices, even if it involved family members. Andrew's loss of status had big effects. He would no longer get the large yearly allowance that helped pay for his lifestyle since Queen Elizabeth died. His security team, which he used to get automatically as a royal family member, would now have to be paid for by King Charles if Andrew wanted any protection at all. Most importantly, Andrew would have to move from Royal Lodge to a much smaller house on the Sandringham estate. Reports said he would be moved to a simple home that was nothing like the big mansion he was leaving behind. Prince Andrew's former maid reveals the truth about him. The fall of a royal is never quiet, but few have fallen with as much noise or disgrace as Prince Andrew. Once hailed as the Queen's favorite son, he now stands as one of the most scandal-stained figures in the monarchy's history. In 2023, the Crown itself cut ties, stripping him of his honorary military titles and silencing the use of His Royal Highness. For a man raised on privilege, it was a public humiliation unlike anything the House of Windsor had ever seen. But while the world focused on lawsuits, headlines, and rumored connections to Jeffrey Epstein, another story was brewing. Not one born in courtrooms or tabloids, but within the palace walls themselves. A story told not by lawyers or journalists. Through Charlotte's eyes, the myth of royal dignity crumbled. Andrew wasn't just a disgraced prince facing legal battles. He was, in her words, a bad apple, a man so consumed by entitlement that even the simplest tasks became someone else's burden. Her account was a glimpse behind the gilded curtain, and it was anything but flattering. For Buckingham Palace, silence was the chosen response. When pressed about Charlotte's claims, no comment came. It was the same tactic used for years: ignore, outlast, and hope the noise fades. But times have changed. Silence, once a shield, now amplifies suspicion. What makes Charlotte's revelation so powerful isn't just their content, but their timing. They surfaced at Andrew's lowest point, when public opinion had already turned against him. Her words reinforced the narrative that the man who once stood proudly beside his mother on the balcony was not a victim of circumstance, but an architect of his own downfall. As damning as Charlotte's account was, it wasn't the only one. Humanity in return. And Charlotte wasn't alone in exposing the strange inner world of the Duke of York. Former palace guard Paul Page corroborated her accounts in an ITV documentary, Ghislaine, Prince Andrew, and the Pedophile. He revealed Andrew's obsession with stuffed toys, claiming his bed was covered with 50 or 60 of them. Maids were given a laminated diagram showing the exact placement of each bear. If one was out of order, Andrew's temper would explode. Even outsiders noticed. Writer Elizabeth Day recalled visiting Buckingham Palace in 2019, where she waited in a corridor opposite an oversized teddy bear perched on a chair. When she later asked Andrew about it, he laughed and explained it was a wedding gift from Sarah Ferguson. What might have seemed quirky in another context suddenly seemed strange when layered onto years of testimony about his childish demands. Charlotte was left in tears, shocked that something so trivial could provoke such rage. This, she explained, was not an isolated incident. Tantrums were part of the job. His bed had to be turned down with military precision, pillows embroidered with the royal crest placed in the exact center, pajamas laid out neatly, and most bizarre of all, his teddy bears positioned just so. Miss a step, and Andrew would erupt. It wasn't just the demands that unsettled her, it was hypocrisy. This man fought in the Falklands, she remembered thinking. Yet he couldn't even close his own curtains. By contrast, other royals exuded dignity. Charles and Edward, she said, were wonderful. Princess Anne kept her distance but showed quiet respect. Andrew, however, was the rotten apple, the one who spoilt what could have been the job of a lifetime. Still, there were surreal moments. Charlotte earned £600 a month and even found herself standing on the royal balcony during Trooping the Colour. She was hugged by Nelson Mandela, a memory she cherished. But behind the grandeur, her daily reality was dominated by Andrew's petty demands. And then there was Sarah Ferguson. Despite their divorce in 1992, Charlotte claimed Andrew kept his ex-wife close in spirit, if not in body. His wardrobe, she alleged, still held her wedding dress. Her makeup remained neatly laid out on his dressing table, as though she might walk back in at any moment. For Charlotte, it was unsettling, a sign he hadn't let go, even as the world assumed he had moved on. Her stories didn't surface immediately. They came years later, in 2022, just as Andrew's life imploded under the weight of Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit. Giuffre alleged she was trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and forced to have sex with Andrew when she was a teenager. Andrew denied it fiercely, but the damage was done. Against this backdrop, Charlotte spoke out, her memories adding another layer to the portrait of a man who demanded loyalty but offered little humanity, but by someone who lived in the shadows of his daily life, his former maid. Her name is Charlotte Briggs. And what she revealed about Prince Andrew is enough to make the scandals already attached to his name look tame. So what did Charlotte Briggs say? Keep watching to find out. Charlotte entered Buckingham Palace in 1996, a 21-year-old from Yorkshire who thought she'd landed a once-in-a-lifetime role. At first, she was tasked with routine duties, cleaning offices, taking out bins, and even sharing small human moments with royals who treated her kindly. She remembered Prince Edward holding the door open for her, an act of courtesy she hadn't expected. For 6 months, her job was simple. Then came the assignment no one wanted, serving Prince Andrew. What should have been a mark of trust quickly revealed itself as a nightmare. Andrew was 36 at the time, newly divorced from Sarah Ferguson, and living back in the palace on what was known as the nursery floor. Yet despite being a grown man, a military veteran, and a prince of the realm, his behavior, according to Charlotte, was more like that of a spoiled child than a war hero. She recalled her first taste of his temper, a rant over curtains. Andrew, seated just a few feet away, demanded she run up and down stairs to adjust them until they were exactly how he liked. When a sliver of light peeked through the top, his fury exploded. "Can't you do anything right?" he barked.
The final royal family meeting. This is the moment everything finally came together. No cameras, no announcements, just a small group gathering at Windsor on December 1st. The meeting was restricted. Phones were left outside. Only the people who truly needed to be there were present. When the meeting started, Anne spoke with the same steadiness she had shown all along. Her focus never drifted to feelings or emotions. She stayed on one point. The monarchy depends on stability. When lines are unclear, the whole structure wobbles. She reminded the king all she had said to William before, that delay was not kind, that ambiguity was not compassion, that protecting the institution meant drawing lines people could see and understand. William's name and signature were boldly inscribed on the cover page. Those in the room understood immediately what that meant. When a future king puts his own name and voice on a document like this, it signals finality. It means the decision has already been made in his mind. The meeting was not about whether to act. It was about how to align with the new reality. Nobody faced the hardest part of the moment than King Charles. Harry was his son. Meghan was his daughter-in-law. And no amount of duty erased that fact. He was heavily overwhelmed with emotion, and everyone could see it. Years of strain had already taken their toll. This was another cut, even if it was necessary. At the same time, Charles had spent his life preparing for moments where feeling could not override. Responsibility! He had watched past monarchs hesitate and pay the price. He understood that leaving things unresolved had already done damage. Acknowledging the need for action did not make it painless, but it made it unavoidable. Palace staff confirmed that William arrived with something he had been working on for weeks, a finished draft. Not notes, not talking points, a full statement in a printed file. Once those lines existed, the noise would eventually fade. Catherine was also at the meeting. Her concern was the tone of William's decision. The statement needed to be firm without sounding cruel, final without sounding angry. After all, Meghan is her sister-in-law, and Harry was her brother-in-law. Nothing personal. She understood better than most how words travel, how they get clipped, shared, and replayed. And luckily, William's draft aligned to her visions. No personal attacks, no history lessons. It focused on the present and the future. It said what was ending and left no confusion about permanence. The discussion did not drag on. There were no rewrites and no edits, no requests for delay. Agreement came faster than many expected. That speed was its own signal. Everyone in the room knew they had reached the end of the road. The decision was simple: release the statement as written. They also agreed that the statement be published the following morning, early enough to reach multiple time zones at once. That's how all major palace announcements had been handled. Once the meeting ended, the palace staff set to work. Communications teams were alerted on a need-to-know basis. Technical staff prepared release systems. Security reviewed schedules. Everything followed plans that had been prepared weeks earlier.
So what do you think about Tucker Carlson's revelation? Could Meghan ever recover from this? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.